James Halbert gripped the cool porcelain of the sink and watched the green stomach bile puddle around the drain. Looking around his small apartment, he felt his stomach twist. Filling a cup, he rinsed his mouth and spit. The faucet blast washed the green stain from his sight. He was a thin man, with a halo of gray hair that seemed to float around his head. Staring at his pinched features in the mirror, he tried to remember the last time he felt good. Staggering back to his metal-framed single bed, he eased himself back down onto his sweat-soaked sheets. "Time," he croaked to the room. 04:38, the room responded cheerfully. "Great," James muttered. 20 minutes till he had to dress for work. He eased himself up, moving so as not to jar any internal organs. He opened his closet and removed a shirt and pants. The only thing in the closet were identical sets of white shirts and khaki pants. It was all he wore, and, as with the coffee, he truly didn't give a shit. Dressing quickly, he clipped his ID to his shirt pocket. Then, back in the kitchen, he grabbed a backpack and filled it with 10 Java Joes and a handful of New Day soy bars. Looking at the label of the last bar as he placed it into the backpack, he read it aloud. "Make every day a new day to remember," James said to the empty kitchen. The bars were the consistency of earwax. He imagined the taste might be similar. James doubted if the 3 exclamation points were really necessary. Outside of his tiny apartment, he palm-locked the doorway behind him. The air was heavy with moisture and the smell of some sort of chemical residual from the fires in Oakland. A petroleum cracking plant had been blown up a week earlier by a militant Earth First faction and was still smoldering. The thought of destroying anything because of its environmental impact was sort of like arresting a politician for acting in his own self-interest, a pointless exercise at best. James walked up to his 8-year-old Honda Katana and spoke. "Halbert, James." The Honda beeped in recognition, deactivating numerous interlocks and anti-theft devices. He put his backpack in the small space behind the seat. The one-seater was a little sparse on space. Sliding in, the car came online, showing the status of its power plant and other vitals. A blinking readout indicated that fuel was down to 20%. He made a mental note to fuel up at work. All state vehicles ran on used vegetable oil collected at fast food restaurants around the state. He hit the warm-up switch to liquefy the solidified grease that had congealed overnight. The small car filled with the smell of fried food, causing James to power down both windows. The smell would adhere to his clothes. It always did. His whole workplace smelled like a fried chicken franchise with all the state employees jammed in such a small space. James sighed. It was because of small absurdities like this he often thought about driving the Katana right into the bay, leaving only a small French fry-smelling slick to mark his passing. The dash chronometer read 5:02. He just had to turn out of Harbor Way, cross G Street, take a left on Railroad Avenue, then a right on Rickover to Poplar Avenue, a total of 12 miles. It would take him a little under 2 hours. He had read somewhere that rush hour had once only occurred at peak hours like 6 to 9 in the morning or 4 to 7 in the afternoon. Now the line of traffic was never ending, like an exercise in perspective stretching to the horizon. 93 minutes later, he pulled into the Power Authority's parking structure and his assigned slot. The small above-ground structure was located about a kilometer from the actual building and was made from interlocking meter-thick slabs of ferrocrete to minimize blast damage from over-enthusiastic environmental zealots or any other yahoo able to jam 100 kilos of explosive into their French fry-smelling personal convenience. The dew wet his pant cuffs as he cut across the brown-burned grass to the Power Authority's entrance. There was only one entrance through which 300 employees had to squeeze every 12-hour shift change. Each employee had to pass through an identity kiosk. This would scan, sniff, and otherwise match a profile for each employee. Any employee who came up wanting would quickly be sprayed with Stay Put, a semi-liquid goo which instantly hardened into a molasses-like epoxy, sticking the helpless employee to the spot. James had witnessed about a half-dozen stay puttings. It was usually caused by a new deodorant or perfume not listed in the authorities' identification lexicon. James queued up and waited patiently, moving through the scanner. Once again he made it through without being glued to the floor, owing, he supposed, to the fact that, as usual, he reeked of fast food grease. He made his way to the elevator and rode down the 10 levels to the power board. The power authority was built like an inverted cone, buried so that only a small amount appeared above ground. The bulk was buried, encased in ferrocrete with a polyceramic cell, impervious to all but a multi-megaton strike. The entirety of air, water, and power generated for the facility were site-dedicated. The whole place could be sealed off and remain independent for weeks, an option that caused James to wake up in a cold sweat at least once a month. As he approached the portal, he hit the palm scanner. The door granted him access. The control room was a circular chamber with displays on all visible wall surfaces. In the center were gathered the techs and usage governors. Seated separately, 4 facilitators and pneumo couches faced the main power loads. They were wired directly via spinal jacks into the grid, constantly monitoring and shifting the billions of kilowatts flowing through the portion of grid that was their responsibility. Facilitators were under contract for 4 years and then given full retirement with an obscene compensation package. James had yet to meet one who had gone the distance. Most ended up disabled, taken out mid-seizure from the couch. Seizures and emboli were hallmarks of their professions. "What's up, boss?" asked Sean, the PM power board operator. "I'm here for what it's worth," James offered tiredly. "Dude, in this place, that's worth its weight in gold," Sean chuckled. Sean is a homesteader out from Napa Valley. He did 6 shifts on and 8 off. Long and lanky, he seemed to be made of rawhide and bleached bone. His long blonde hair was pulled back and tied with a strip of worn leather. He was always in good humor, which simultaneously both amazed and worried James. "Well, Jimmy, everything is 5 by 5, just like you left it. No fires to be put out. Just the chaos and turmoil that passes for normality around here." "How long have the bees been on?" James asked, motioning towards the facilitators. "This group's fresh, the longest about 2 hours, all looking pretty mellow." They were known as bees, short for zombies, due to their marked lack of interaction on and off the wire. "Well, thanks, Sean. You off for 8 now?" Sean nodded. "Yeah, 8 days with a wife and climbers. You should stop out. We're putting up our first Riesling this month." James shrugged. "Yeah, maybe." Sean reached out and grabbed James' shoulder, squeezing lightly. "Dude, you got to get out sometime. This place is killing you." "Truer than you know," James said softly. "You take care, Sean." "You too, Hoss. Stay frosty." James watched Sean make his way out of the power board room, wondering, not for the first time today, what the hell he was doing here.